When I was in the United States a couple of months ago, I had a conversation with the head of an AI company in Silicon Valley. He told me there's a rumor going around that Donald Trump has some nefarious and self serving intentions regarding his policy agenda immediately after inauguration. I couldn't help but note that the irony in the way the American voters are thinking about their welfare. I recently saw an American commentator say that he was saddened about the January 6th report, not because of Donald Trump being a felon, but because the typical American voter didn't care that Donald Trump was so obviously a felon. I'm John DeGuy, a portfolio manager with Design Securities. The Silicon Valley narrative is that Trump will simply act in a way that felons always act in. He'll do self-serving things with little or no respect for laws or conventions or norms. As a president who's already been convicted of multiple felonies, and if the American justice system was not so compromised and cumbersome, he would have almost certainly already been convicted of many other, more serious crimes. Donald Trump now has 4 years to do pretty much whatever the hell he wants. In Canada, we've had to endure a number of childish musings about a 21st century version of Manifest Destiny. It's exhausting. We've heard countless commentators say we need to take Trump seriously, but not literally when he talks about tariffs. One thing that has always occurred when there's a major economic crisis is that the federal government can be relied upon to airdrop wheelbarrows of cash into the accounts of captains of industry on the pretense of keeping corporate America and Canada afloat. The pretense of being too big to fail was coined during the global financial crisis as a means of justifying government bailouts that were quickly converted into corporate largesse. The lesson we all learned was devastatingly clear and brutally heartbreaking. Captains of industry, when getting billions of dollars from their government, will clearly act in their self-interest by being amoral and letting the ordinary people who are adversely affected twist in the wind. According to more than a few people, that's been the Trump game plan from the get-go. Manufacture a recession. That's something that would not have occurred had the massive tariffs and deportations not happened. Then, use the economic havoc that you've initiated as a pretense to bail out the tech bros and plutocrats that helped you gain the presidency in the first place, while simultaneously cutting the social safety net for everyone else on the pretense of the need to balance the budget. Think back throughout history. Extreme economic hard times have tended to be accretive for billionaires. Seeing this, billionaires have simply installed one of their own to do their bidding and accelerate the confiscatory scheming associated with economic hard times. People will very likely have to be extremely careful about what they invest in during these times. It seems likely that conventional stocks and bonds will suffer as a direct result of economic hardships that could have been avoided and will have very likely been actively manufactured by the incoming president. Ordinarily, politicians in office during economic hard times are consigned to the trash bin of history. Herbert Hoover in the United States and R.B. Bennett in Canada both had the misfortune of being elected at the onset of the Great Depression. I don't know if the economic downturn of 2025 will compare, and I don't know what the history books are likely to say about Donald Trump, but as an investor and as an entrepreneur, I suspect he'll make out like a bandit. The irony of all this lies in counterfactuals and in being careful what you wish for. 2024 was seen as the year where incumbent governments around the world were taken to the woodshed because of the aftermath of the COVID crisis and the attendant bout of inflation. Voters had experienced a couple of years of inflation, and despite the fact that policy prescriptions used to fight COVID were far superior to the alternative, people were nonetheless testy and felt justified in punishing the government of the day. Add to that the fact that global supply chains were severely compromised and the fact that there was a war in Central Europe that was adding to inflationary and geopolitical pressure, and voters in Western democracies were ornery. As such, we punished incumbent governments for the economic trials and tribulations we all experienced on their watch. My fear is that most voters had no idea how good they had it. Unfortunately, the only way to get them to recognize this is to show them an alternative that is decidedly worse and then invite them to look back on what might have been. My guess is that the world will be a very different place by the time Donald Trump's 4-year mandate ends, not for the better, and likely not for the reasons you expected.